Hello, in this video I have two replays to show you in the F4F, which is a fairly new fighter plane in my hangar. And when I first got this plane, it struck me as being very average, especially after I did incredibly well in the F2A. I just couldn't get the same results in the F4F. And at first I kind of assumed it was that the plane was stock and I just had to grind out the good engine, the good airframe and whatnot. But once I'd done that, it was actually still kind of average. And, well, it turns out that the thing that turns this aircraft from being average to being an actually pretty good aircraft, at least for me, is to take off the 2 extra machine guns you can get. So I fly this aircraft out with only 4 50 caliber machine guns, and I do pretty well in it. Unfortunately, this game's actually started off very poorly. We have just lost 2 ground attack aircraft in head-on attacks with this enemy IL-2T. And of course the IL-2T's a bit of a jerk about it, but it's kind of okay because our IL-2s that just killed kind of jerks at it back at him. So, whatever. Jerks will be jerks. Anyway, managed to come around and I get the kill on the enemy IL-2T. But for a while there we were in a 3-on-5, and well, still 3-on-4, so it's not good for us. But the one advantage that we have is that, well, we've still got a tier 6 aircraft and the enemy only have tier 5s remaining, and that we have 3 fighters, and you can see we're all pretty well grouped together here, while the enemy only has 2. Now we get lucky that the enemy fighters attack us, well, separately for the most part. I bank left here, and as I do so, oh no, not right now. In a second, there we go, bank left. And I spot the Corsair prototype, which was lucky. It was kind of hidden in the sun a bit, so we didn't spot it particularly early. But if I hadn't banked left, it probably would have fired at me before I'd spotted it, and would have taken a lot more damage. But as is, I was able to dodge and avoid some of its fire. And now, in a turn fight, I will beat the Corsair prototype all the time. And my 2 allies are both Spitfires, so they can also turn inside this guy. And basically this fight isn't going to end well for the Corsair prototype. Unfortunately, I kind of lose my shot on this guy thanks to my Spitfire here coming in between us. But luckily, well, kind of luckily, the enemy F4F dives out of the sun, so it gives me something else to shoot at. And, well, also luckily, this guy is flying out with 6 50 caliber machine guns, which means that while it's got much better firepower than me, I can quite easily turn inside it and outrun it and outclimb it and all of that as well. So I'm pretty confident that, well, now that I'm in this position, this guy's not going to live. And I've got, well, both the Spitfires helping me out, and, well, it crashes, but it wouldn't have lasted more than 10 seconds, so we've managed to turn this game around. It's now the 3 of us still, and we're against 2 IL-2 mods. So we've got the numerical advantage, but it's not all that great. The 2 IL-2s are in a flight together. They both have tail gunners, and you'd have to assume they're going to be nearby and able to support each other. Well, I've lost half my health. I think the Spitfire 1's also lost a bit of its health, but Spitfire 5's in good condition. So if they can force us to fly in their tail gunners' zone of fire for long enough, they could well win this one. And of course they are still way ahead on superiority points, so all they've actually got to do is fly away and not fight us, and they'll win. And especially since this is a tier 6 game with tier 6 anti-aircraft guns, myself and the Spitfire 1 in particular wouldn't last very long under anti-aircraft fire if they were to pull back. So when I was coming up here I was hoping they're still there, and then we see them attacking a ground target. So I'm thinking, great, we'll at least get to fight them on kind of even terms. That ground target just exploded, and we see the IL-2. And I start pulling up to go around the flank, and I hear shells coming at me, so you have to assume at least one of them is pitched up to fire at me. So I pitch up and fly over them to kind of try and force it into a stall or to either stop firing at me. It stops firing at me, so I dive down on this IL-2. And the reason I chose to do that one is because I saw my friendly Spitfire 5 was also firing at it, And basically we want to just knock one of these aircraft out as soon as we can, so there's only one tail gunner firing back at us. And this one was, well, it was 50-50, and this one was the first one I saw enemy firing at. And you can see all three of us now are firing away at that guy. I almost rammed it, but my team killed it just before I did. And the enemy last remaining IL-2 gives up and crashes. So we actually played pretty well in the end game there against those two IL-2s. If we had have been a lot less coordinated, that wouldn't have gone anywhere near as well for us. But in the day, us three fighters did a pretty good job in kind of just, really, we made it look like those IL-2s had no chance, where they did actually, if we had been less coordinated, have a pretty decent chance of winning that. This next game, well, it's one of the odd ones that matchmaking throws out on the North American server now. My team consists of a Focke-Wulf 190D, a Tier 7 fighter, and, well, 4 Tier 5s, while the enemy team has 2 Tier 6s and 3 Tier 5s to round out their team. So we've got the advantage there, provided our Focke-Wulf 190D knows its job. We've also got the advantage that the enemy have a ground attack aircraft, which means since most games are decided by shooting down all enemy aircraft, we are going to have an advantage just because we'll have 5 fighters against the enemy's 4. As you can see, we've kind of negated that advantage. The other F4F on our team has flown way off down to the south for some reason. It doesn't actually do anything in it, it just turns around and flies back to join us eventually. And the bow fighter on our team is strafing ground targets in the centre of the map. But we've spotted the enemy up here in the north. The Focke-Wulf 190D goes into a dive and puts some shots into the IL-2. And then as it's pulling out, the bow fighter manages to get on its tail. And a Focke-Wulf 190V is also diving into the attack. I initially turn onto the tail of the Focke-Wulf 190V, and then I see the 190D's got a bit of trouble, so I go for the bow fighter because I figure it's probably going to be the easier one for me to kill in this kind of scenario. I actually come pretty close to crashing here, but, well, not really close. I thought for a second I might. Turn on to the tail of the bow fighter, then I look at my radar and realise the Focke-Wulf 190V is actually right beside me. So, switch over, put some shots into it, and it starts turning, which is pretty good for me because I can turn inside a Focke-Wulf 190V any day of the week in a second. But I don't get the kill, the 190D gets the kill and then comes racing past me. And I turn onto the bow fighter, and the advantage we've got here is that because this bow fighter is broken off to go after the Spitfire, it means that the 190D's actually free to, you know, there's no one on its tail, so it can do what it wants when it wants without fear of being shot down. Which means that basically my job at the moment in the Spitfire with me is just to try and pin the enemy down at low altitude and just try and stop anyone getting on the 190D's tail and let that guy do all the work. And well, this 190E, for some reason, it insists on dogfighting us at low altitude, and I can turn inside it, especially down at this altitude. So that's not really a good plan there, but I suppose if it was doing boom and zooming, it would be slaughtered by the 190D, so this guy's really in a really bad situation. But I just can't quite get the kill, so another assist there. And well, the last enemy aircraft remaining up here is this IL-2T. Yeah, it's on lots of hit points, but there's, well, you see that F4F that flew off down south has now arrived and is putting some shots in. The Spitfire on my team's still around, although it's on low hit points. I'm here, the 190D's here. The only one of our team missing is the bow fighter, which is actually, well, it's been engaged in a turn fight with the enemy Ki 88 for a long time. And basically neither of them is actually able to gain an advantage in that fight. But IL-2T there got absolutely slaughtered, and there's my third assist, which, well, you have to kind of expect it. I've only got 450 caliber machine guns. I think I'm actually putting out the least number of shots of anyone on my team. I'm assuming the other F4F on our team has 6 guns, because most of them do, so realistically I'm probably not going to get the last shot in. So if there are more than one aircraft shooting at an enemy, it's probably going to be an assist for the F4F and the kill for whoever else is shooting at them. Anyway, here is the Ki 88 and bow fighter dogfight. You can see the Beaufighters almost managed to kill the Ki-88, but the Ki-88's taken about half the Beaufighter's health. But our team arrives, Ki-88's not going to survive that, and I actually managed to get the kill there. Which gives me 2 kills and 3 assists, so I get the supporting fire medal. And what really surprised me is that in a tier 7 game, I got the most experience and also did almost 3 times the damage of the tier 7 fighter. That was just all me sticking on people's tails and just basically keeping my guns in the game constantly and just unloading. As you see there, 2,700 shots fired, 16% accuracy. I do tend to get very high accuracies in the F4F. I'm not entirely sure why, but perhaps it's just a very stable gun firing platform and I do well in it. So anyway, that's the F4F. I found, as I said, once I took the extra 2 guns off, it's actually a really good fighter. So, if you've been struggling, maybe try that. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.